turned on. Yeah.
All I need to do is type it. So I'm going to give you notes associated with episode number 22. Star Wars is what they call it. Oh, you're like, oh, good, George Lucas, awesome. Star Wars. Yeah. I had a student years ago who was so into Star Wars. Every time like somebody would mention Star Wars, like in the context of this, he would just like shout out, Star Wars! Yeah. Just imagine when like the Mandalorian came out. He's like, all right, new content. Go Disney Plus. Yeah. So anyway, this is interesting because it's like, here we go. Take a look. Write this down. The Cold War is wrapping up. In fact, this next episode, I've got like a whole bunch of notes, because there's a lot of really consequential things that take place in this time period. Star Wars is what, 1981, 1988, the Reagan years. And the latter part of the Reagan years, in fact, most of the Reagan, the last half of the Reagan years, Gorbachev is going to be the leader of the Soviet Union. And you guys hopefully have enough of a memory of how things played out when we did that authoritarian government unit in the 10th grade. And you know that when the Cold War is over, you give a fair amount of credit to Gorbachev for being willing to be head of a country that will introduce free elections, capitalism, free speech. So we're going to see that. It's like, wow. But when we get to it, you ask questions like, what is the reason for the end of the Cold War? This last thing that we just saw is part of it. Make sure you write that down. The Soviet Union having a really bad go of it in the war in Afghanistan is going to be a component that will weaken the Soviet Union. That's one of the components. Okay? I know some of you guys are joking like, well, Mr. Hanson, I thought you said you were the reason why communism failed in the Soviet Union and the Cold War ended. We'll get to that too. Yeah.
So what was that one thing that Gorbachev did that like, it was like really controversial, especially among the, no. There was one thing like it seemed like he was all for rights, yada yada yada.
We're gonna get to that. Yeah, all for rights. Yeah.
The tank?
We'll get into the whole book. I'm not getting enough specific questions. Suffice it to say, as we get into these last years of the Cold War, we look at Gorbachev's record. Because some people in America are like, he's awesome. Hire him for Pizza Hut commercials, and I will show you what Pizza Hut commercial with Gorbachev in it. Because even at the end of the Cold War, I mean, a lot of the Russian people and Soviet people are like, yeah, he was in charge when we hit bottom, and so his popularity is not going to be great in the Soviet Union. But other people in the United States and so forth, and in Eastern Europe, Western Europe, they're going to look and go, well, if it wasn't for Gorbachev, things wouldn't have worked out quite the way they did. So yeah, I'll buy some pizza from Pizza Hut. And, Gorbachev. I mean, there's a top communist. After the Cold War is over, you're hawking pizza with cheese in the crust.
Oh, that is interesting. That puts him like 3 levels low.
I mean, there's some interesting stuff. And of course, one of the cool things is like we got to talk about, let's see, what contributed to the end of the Cold War? Rock and roll. Music. Hello. Yeah. And science and technology. Those you guys are into science and technology, military technology. In fact, that's going to be a real component part here. Capitalism. Because who can buy more good advanced science and technology? Capitalism or a communist state-dominated economy?
Capitalism.
Capitalism. It doesn't work perfectly for everyone. Sometimes it doesn't work great for some people, but generally, overall, it can create more wealth for a country as compared to like having the government in charge of every component of the economy, which is what things were in the Soviet Union. Yeah. But no, China, China is like, let me see, what does China have? Democracy? No. Free speech? No. Free enterprise economy?
Yeah.
More so.
But they have the worst economy.
Okay. Yeah. And a lot of it is privately owned. Oh my gosh, no. Haven't you heard me say like 1 million times Deng Xiaoping, it doesn't matter whether the cat is black or white, as long as it catches mice, it's a good cat. He was the guy, the one on the far right there, he was the guy that took over after Mao and instituted a lot of like capitalist type economic changes. And before that, Mao just stuck to the old Marxist template, which is the government should be in charge of everything. If you do really well at work, we'll give you a badge. Yeah. As opposed to now, if you're in China, can you make a boatload of money?
Yeah.
Correct. Correct. You got that. Yeah. Yeah. And if you are a very wealthy Chinese person, businessman, and so forth,
That's keep your mouth shut.
yeah, because they'll pack you up. There was one guy I
He is
was reading
silent.
about who got like quiet, Jack Ma. I think he got quieted down quite a bit because the Chinese communists were like, really? How far do you want to take this?
Oh boy. They're like, well, they have to.
Yeah, you want to play that game? That's not really So one of the key things is, and I'm going to introduce you to this. Ronald Reagan. In fact, I'm going to play. They have it in the video. Episode number 22. But I'm going to show you the larger context. Ronald Reagan, in his early on, put this down. Ronald Reagan, when he comes in, he's like, man, the Soviet Union is evil. Write that down. Evil. That's not like, oh, they got a really not well thought out ideological thing. No, evil. What kind of word is evil? Evil. Yeah, it's like demonic. It's like tapping into understandings and things that are associated with like good and evil, God and godless. Oh my gosh, the Soviet Union. I mean, they stepped right into that, right? I mean, did they allow for much religious liberty during the time of much of the Soviet Union? No.
I don't think, do they still have
I mean, they have. Yeah, I mean, it will continue. Yeah, I mean, the Russian Orthodox Church is going to survive and actually become very prominent afterwards. I mean, the end of the Soviet, end of communism,
Well,
the Soviet
like
Union,
now.
you're going to have former communists tripping over themselves saying, let's help the Russian Orthodox Church. They're going to spend all kinds of money rebuilding Russian Orthodox churches. I mean, some of them, you'll literally have people still running under the communist badge saying, oh yeah, Jesus was the first communist, right? He wanted to figure it out, So, no, Ronald Reagan, he would come in and he'd go, look, communism is evil. This is fascinating because he comes in, who is the leader? Right, who's the leader of the Soviet Union when Ronald Reagan becomes president in 1981? It's Matt Gorbachev. And there's going to be two that you're going to forget, although you will remember just enough. And Gorbachev and Chernenko came after this guy died. This was the guy who was the Soviet leader from like early 60s after Khrushchev. Starts with a B. Rhymes with Brezhnev. Brezhnev, yeah, Brezhnev. Anyway, when Brezhnev comes in, then you're like, that guy is like super evil and everything and stuff. He's like, anyway, he's got a cat. It's terrible. Just kidding, no, he doesn't. Yeah. Nobody got that reference? No. Thank you very much. Yes. And he had a little mini version of himself. Oh, Austin Powers, thank you. Anyway, but Brezhnev, I mean, he's like old and sort of, not quite there. And so, but I mean, Reagan is reacting. Write this down. Reagan looks and he says this whole Soviet system and what they're doing in Afghanistan and what they're doing in Eastern Europe, what they do to their own people, he's sized it up for quite some time. I mean, he's been around in like political stuff since the 50s and 60s and 70s, and now he goes into the 80s and he goes, this is evil. And he's given a speech. I'm going to play that excerpt from this speech. He's given a speech. This is in 1981. This is part of his Evil Empire speech. And some people are like, oh my gosh, you're just being way too like, pointing the finger. And other people are like, you're calling it the way it is. Oh, sorry, I got the date up there? Yeah, March 8, 1983. Thank you very much. And he's speaking to a group of evangelicals, okay, so Christian pastors and so forth. Yeah. No, he was a Republican. Although he started out as a Democrat, and he was the head of the actors union in Hollywood. Yeah.
Super quick question. I was looking at the president. I was wondering if, because they have a red tie and a blue tie, they're Democrat.
No, it doesn't, because George W. Bush's are, yeah, nice try. Sometimes you can like figure that out nowadays, but I've noticed it's not a very clear indicator. Yeah, because George W. Bush is a Republican, he's wearing a blue tie.
Like Trump's.
In the last two, it works.
Donald Trump wears a blue
You
tie.
know? Yeah, I mean, it's like, hello. What colors are your colors if you're in the United States of America? Red and blue.
About blue today,
And
my
don't
blue
forget
later.
white. We're a part of America. We got three colors. Although purple is, you know, kind of a blend of red and blue and so forth.
Yeah.
Here we go. Yeah, Raymond's speech, right here. Let me tell you this. Okay? We'll talk
Let
about it a
us
little
be
bit.
aware that while they preach the supremacy of the state, declare its omnipotence over individual man, and predict its eventual domination of all peoples on the earth, they are the focus of evil in the modern world. It was C.S. Lewis who, in his unforgettable Screwtape letters,
Wrote the Narnia.
the greatest evil is not done now in those sordid dens of crime that Dickens loved to paint. It is not even done in concentration camps and labor camps. In those, we see its final result. But it is conceived and ordered, moved, seconded, carried, and minuted in clear, carpeted, warmed, and well-lighted offices by quiet men with white collars and cut fingernails and smooth-shaven cheeks who do not need to raise their voice. But because these quiet men do not raise their voices, because they sometimes speak in soothing tones, because like other dictators before them, they're always making their final territorial demand, some would have us accept them at their word and accommodate ourselves with their aggressive impulses. But if history teaches anything, it teaches that simple-minded appeasement or wishful thinking about our adversaries is folly. It means the betrayal of our past, the squandering of our freedom. So I urge you to speak out against those who would place the United States in a position of military and moral inferiority. You know, I've always believed that George Clooney reserved his best efforts for those of you in the church. So in your discussions of the nuclear freeze proposals, I urge you to beware the temptation of pride, the temptation of blithely declaring yourselves above it all, label both sides equally at fault, to ignore the facts of history and the aggressive impulses of an evil empire, to simply call the arms race a giant misunderstanding, and thereby remove yourself from the struggle between right and wrong and good and evil.
We'll talk about that. We'll give you the notes. Yeah, we'll give you the notes. A lot of stuff, important stuff coming up. I can see you guys not Tuesday, but Wednesday. We'll pick right back up on Wednesday. Give you the notes and then we'll be,
Too much gone bad.
Okay, who stole my crack?
I forgot to plug in my speaker.